So for this idea of concept attainment, um, I've come up with some instructions that I think I would use if I was teaching this to my students. You can see them here, and I would just explain that here's this important topic. There's going to be some images that are examples and non-examples, and as you scroll through, I want you to keep notes of what characteristics the examples have in common. Now, there may be some things that the non-examples maybe even feel like they're part of, but the important thing is to pay attention to the characteristics of the examples. And so as the students would go through this, they would start by seeing this really cold area with this guy there dressed as warmly as possible, and they would come up with some characteristics of what this would be. The non-examples of a prairie dog. The next example is of a beach. And so now, that's a pretty opposite example of the one they first saw. And so this is going to require some critical thinking as to, okay, now we've got this beach. What does this have to do with the really cold place that we saw before? Next, non-examples of a cell phone. And then our example is of a city, a really big city. And so, again, this is going to require a lot of critical thinking to figure out how our really cold place, the beach, and the city are all related. Okay, next we have a non-example of a flashlight. Not really going to help out with our examples. Our next examples of a classroom in the Middle East. And hopefully at this point, the students are going to start realizing that these images have to do with places, and especially like why or why not a person would want to live in a specific place. Our next non-example is of a bunch of colored pencils. Then we've got water. In this case, we've got a river. And water is definitely one of the key features when it comes to, where people settle. And then our last examples of shoes. And so at this point, our students are going to have composed some, characteristics that all of our examples deal with. So we've got some weather conditions. We've got a really nice place. We've got a big city. We've got a school. And now we've got water. And so hopefully they're going to come up with reasons that you would want to live in a place, or maybe move to or move from a place, because ultimately that's where we're trying to get them. So at this point in time, I would then have our class come up with, so the students have been working individually. Now we're going to have them work together as a class. So we're going to go through this as a class and create a list of attributes, and then show some more examples after we've come up with our list, and then test out our characteristics and do some refining as well. So then I would show a picture of a Capitol building representing government, and hopefully this is going to go right along with what our students have come up with. And if not, then they're going to have to do some revising. And a picture of a bird, and then jobs, work, and then finally just a picture of sunglasses. And so at this point in time, if we need to make some revisions, we do that because now we've added government and jobs to our list of, already we've seen water, we've seen education, we've seen cities, and we've seen some weather conditions. And, really nice place to live with the beach. So after that, I would then have the class take a look at the class list, make any changes that we need to, and then say, okay, what is our topic? But more importantly, what are the key characteristics of that topic? And then I would have them add 3 images of examples and non-examples to what we've already done. So this is where they're going to start creating and adding to our presentation. And then, then we would get to, okay, these are push and pull factors, and that there's many reasons that people migrate and choose to live where they do, and we can go over those with the examples, especially, and then explain, hey, that, factors that attract people to immigrate to an area are called pull factors, whereas factors that make people want to leave are called push factors. And then I would explain, you've created a list of characteristics of push and pull factors. And so what you're going to do now is work with a partner and go back through the images and determine if the picture is of a push or a pull factor, and then, explain why you chose that. And then I would have these thought questions, to check our understanding. Is it possible for a push factor to be a pull factor? And then explain that. What is the difference between voluntary and involuntary migration? And which of the characteristics from our list would fit under voluntary or involuntary migration? Because that's really where we want to get to, is push and pull factors, and then, ultimately migration, forced or voluntary. And this goes with the 9th grade social studies core in the World Geography Standard 2.2, which is students will explain push and pull factors causing voluntary and involuntary migration, the consequence created by the movement of people, which is eventually where we would get to with this. But I think this would be a really good lesson to use concept attainment with push and pull factors. So there you go. Hope you enjoy, and if you have any questions, let me know.